Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Kulhan Plains, playing as the Wood Elves against the forces of the Beastmen. So this is the build I've actually been experimenting with quite a bit and found pretty successful against all sorts of Beastmen builds, from Morgar to even Vanguard to builds like this one, and I really wanted to kind of demonstrate it and show it off, and I think it's pretty solid. So for my Lord I did decide to bring Durthu. Nothing much to say there. He's freaking Durthu. He's a beast. He's got Wisdom's Wild Form. He's got Wild Heart. He's got Flock of Doom, Lamentation of Despair, and the Sword of Death. So a whole bunch of debuffs, a whole bunch of damage, a whole bunch of buffs, debuffs, damage, and of course he's Durthu. So in case I haven't said it enough, he's freaking Durthu. He does boatloads of damage. He's got physical resist, great melee stats, 100 armor. I don't know how much more you can emphasize that. Alongside him is a Branch Wraith with Just Call of the Woods and Earthblood, basically providing some of that additional support, making the front line a little more competent in a close quarter slugfest. For the rest of my army, my front line, this army is actually very centered around the infantry corps, and you can see I did bring 2 units of Dryads. These guys are actually there because they have 60 armor, and they have 20% physical resist. This means they trade pretty well with Gores. They trade pretty well with, well, they trade very well with Ungors. They can beat up Centigores. They can basically trade well with pretty much anything. They're except for Bestigores and Gorbulls. These guys will do quite a bit of work. Okay, melee attack, not great melee defense, but solid weapon strength makes these guys pretty competitive, and they can definitely soak up a charge. The reason they're here in the front is actually so that I can position them in the front to soak up the charge for my more elite troops to do the damage. My second line is composed of 2 units of War Dancers. You can see over here, War Dancers will mop up Gores and squishy infantry very quickly. They'll even do okay against the monsters like Minotaurs just because their melee stats are that good. But they're a fair bit squishier than even Dryads, so you really want them to be dealing with their special or their specific specialties. Finally, in the center here, we do have 2 units of Wildwood Rangers, and these guys are obviously a bit of a risky pick. You don't see these guys very often. I think, obviously, they're very squishy. They've only got 40 armor, which is definitely a little bit of an issue. But they have very good melee stats. Now, they don't have a bonus versus infantry like the Hargoneth Executioners or Swordmaster of Hoeth, but they do have very solid melee defense at 38, melee attack of 48, which is being buffed here by the Branch Wraith, and great AP stats, 42 weapon strength, of which 32 is armor piercing. For reference, Bestigor's only at 40. These guys have significantly better stats than Bestigor's in a straight up fight. They are a little slower, but if you compare them, you can see besides their HP pool, these guys are, and charge bonus, these guys are basically better than Bestigor's in every way that matters. So they're really kind of a solid pick. The biggest problem is that armor. So while they'll trade very well with Bestigors, they won't trade great with Gores, and or as great with against Gores or against enemy fire especially. And if they are in the woods, they actually do get a little special buff here, plus 12 bonus versus large and plus charge defense versus large. I haven't found this to be particularly useful. You rarely get value out of it, but whatever, it's there. And of course, immunity psychology is kind of the Wood Elf standard for most of their infantry. The only ones who don't have immunity psychology are actually Eternal Guard. For my backline, 2 units of Glade Guard with Hagbane tips. The AP is really centered on the Wildwood Rangers and Durthu here. Otherwise, cycle charging into the back of enemy Bestigors. The Glade Guard are mostly there to pick apart enemy Centigores, and you'll even see Centigores with throwing axes. So, and of course you'll see Gores, Ungors, that sort of stuff. So these guys can tear through them pretty quick and pretty efficiently. They'll tear through Minotaurs, so I think they're a valuable pickup. Then 2 units of Wild Riders, Unshielded variant, as well as the Sister of the Thorn. I think I've been, despite my previous somewhat cynicism towards the Sister of the Thorn, I've been finding them more and more valuable because Shield of Thorns is so amazing, both for blocking enemy skirmish fire as well as for helping your non-AP troops dish out hurt. And then the Curse of Honor is just amazing debuff nowadays with minus 26 melee attack and minus 24% speed, especially because it doesn't cost Winds of Magic on these guys. It's just so powerful. And these guys are an okay melee combatant and an okay ranged poke unit, so I've just been finding Sister of the Thorn to be awesome. And at least to bring one of them. I mean, obviously not a whole army of them, but as a single support unit, I find them invaluable. Now, for my opponent's army, you can always see Centigores sneaking around the flank here. So Centigores trade not great with Wild Riders, but you can mob Wild Riders. They're obviously much cheaper. They can get into your backline. They're faster than Wild Riders. You can get on top of Glade Guard. You can get rear charges on the Dryads and War Dancers. Just make yourself a general nuisance. For his Lord, he does have Malgor the Dark Omen with a surprisingly massive selection of spells. He does have Bestial Surge. Interestingly enough, I can't see an Arcane Conduit. I do believe Malagor does have an Arcane Conduit, so not sure why that is. But my opponent did bring Traderkin, he did bring Vile Tide, Mantle of Gorok, and a Savage Dominion. So a whole bunch of different spells, a whole bunch of potential. Surprisingly, no Devolve or Brave Scream. Brave Scream is usually what people bring if they want to spam Bestial Surge and Mantle of... Oh, actually he did bring Unholy Power. I thought he had Arcane Conduit in there as well. Maybe I'm confusing him with something else. It's been a while. I don't make much use of Malagor because I don't usually use Cygor builds. First front line, my opponent did bring 2 units of Goreherd with shields, some Ungor with Spearman Herds with shields. Basically, these guys, as far as I'm aware, just tie my front line down, be a nuisance, trade okay with Dryads and War Dancers, and just basically just tie me down. Ungor Spears won't do well against anything, basically. Bestigors, though, in the back will trash War Dancers and Dryads, and of course they will do okay against Wildwood Rangers. 2 units cost about the same. I assume they trade about the same. I'm not, because the Wildwood Rangers do have better stats, but the Bestigors have more HP and a better charge, so I'm not entirely sure who wins. On the flanks, my opponent also does have a monstrous contingent of Minotaurs. 3 units of them, led by a Gorbel, and of course the Gorbel does have 100 armor. He's an absolute beast. Anti-large bonus. He is coming in with Slaughter Skull, so potentially this is an ultimate goon squad here. And my opponent hasn't bothered with a terror-causing item. Definitely a smart choice in my opinion, because it's just not going to work against most Wood Elf units. My opponent does get a little nasty charge here against my War Dancers, but I in turn get a charge with the Wild Riders. Wild Riders, of course, have a monster charge bonus of their own, and they're going to start shredding these Centigors. Anytime Hagbane tips here, slowing down and weakening these Centigors on the charge. With the Wild Riders, you can see just dominate when they get their charge off. 67 charge bonus to the 45 of the Centigors, much better weapon strength, even when they're being poisoned by friendly fire. And these Centigors are in for a rough time, and really some bad stuff for my opponents going down there. In the meantime, of course, the archers are going to whittle down these guys from the flank. You can see they're already down to under half health. They're going to start collapsing. They're going to lose their benefits. They're going to lose their permanent. They're going to lose their rowdy. They're going to lose their Primal Fury, and they're going to be unable to escape, and the Wild Riders will absolutely dumpster them at that point. And you can see they're already down. These guys are not going to be long for this world. These Centigors are also not long for this world. And my opponent didn't push his Minotaurs in while he had the chance here, so missed opportunity, I think, on my opponent's part to really lay the smack down on me. In the meantime, the Glade Guard are doing their cake. You can see Dryads here. I'm pushing them into an ideal fight here against the Gors, and I'm not entirely sure. Once again, Dryads have much lower HP than the Gors. You can see they only start with like 50, a little over 5,000, but once the fight degenerates, I'm pretty sure they'll trade well with the Gors. Maybe not. Maybe I'm overestimating how well they trade here. They do cost, I think, about the same. They are a bit tankier just because of raw armor. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure who outtrades who here. We'll see. It seems to be a pretty even trade regardless, and it's okay. They're mostly just there to soak up the charge. In the meantime, the Hagbane tips whittling down those Centigors, and my opponent finally does decide to make a push here with the Minotaurs. You can see the War Dancers are going to slice and dice through these Ungor Spears very quickly. That's one of those things War Dancers will do very well. But my opponent is pushing in with his Minotaurs. You can see trying to get on top of my Wild Riders and my Sister of the Thorn. You can see that flanking fire, though, coming in from the Hagbane tips, slowing these Minotaurs down, knocking their speed down to 50, even with their bonus popped. You can see here in the heart of things, Wildwood Rangers slugging out with Goreherd. And over here, Dryads, you can hit by Wissam's Wild Form just to keep them alive and keep them fighting, as Durthu does plow into the front to deal with the Gorbel. And of course, Durthu is he's not a specialist or a duelist, but with these monster stats, he will lay the smackdown, even on a Big Daddy Gorbel here. You can see, of course, the Hagbane tips. As soon as these guys expose their flanks, they've only got 45 armor. They're going to get whittled down hard. Over here, Minotaurs are going to start whacking on Durthu, but Durthu has a lot of HP and, of course, decent melee defense, especially against non-specialized Minotaurs, so you can sit there and tank. On the flanks, Wildwood Rangers are slugging it out. The Ungor Spears are going to get annihilated, but unfortunately, you can see I've made a huge mistake here just getting boxed up, so definitely a big mistake on my part. The Wildwood Rangers over here just dominating those Gors, but once again, a bit of a problem here because don't have the I'm wasting a lot of HP on a valuable unit here, sliding out with a not so valuable unit of my opponent's. Over here, though, the Minotaurs are getting chipped away at, and I make a huge mistake letting my cavalry here get caught by the Minotaurs. I should have tried to just get a counter charge. Minotaurs are pretty squishy. You can actually get good trades in against them with any sort of cavalry, but right now they're just getting free damage on my Wild Riders as I try to deal with these blobs, hit them with Sword of Daith, getting that debuff, smacking the Gorbel around, melting the Ungors, and of course the War Dancers in there with Earthblood are going to be laying the smackdown on them. Anytime these Minotaurs are getting chipped away at, and my opponent actually turns the unit of Minotaurs away to deal with the Glade Guard. And this is a bit of a mistake for my opponent because it isolates these Minotaurs. I do pop a Curse of Honoraire, and they're going to get annihilated. They don't have the melee stats to defend themselves. there's just so many troops in here. Shield of Thorns does go down to get me that extra damage output in melee. 52 weapon strength on the Wild Riders, and these guys are just getting annihilated. And of course the Minotaurs are just going to fall apart, probably shatter rather quickly. You can see they've just shattered and given up. Over here the Minotaur is still trying to tie me down. The big Papa Gorbel here getting smacked around. Durthu is having none of his business. Like, he's just smashing him. Gorbel over here is forced to shatter. It really does show a powerful duelist here. Durthu against the mob of Minotaurs and against Big Papa Gorbel, coming out on top with 4,900 HP. A Lamentation of Despair plowing into the flank of these troops. You can see the Wild Rangers holding their own. Branch Wraith out dueling a Cygor. Unfortunately, these Minotaurs are doing a bit of a work here against the Glade Guard, but it doesn't matter. The cavalry's coming in to save the day. Cheers, the cavalry's here. They're going to smush the Minotaurs. They only have 11 models, but they actually have 11 models. I guess I shouldn't say only. That's quite a bit, but once they start getting surrounded and smushed by cavalry, they're in for a rough time. Over here, the Bestigors are trying to collapse on Durthu. My opponent at this point probably realizing he can't win if he doesn't collapse me somewhere. You can see over here, I have my Wild Rangers. I'm trying to get my Dryads. I extricated my War Dancers, got him on top of Malagor. I should have pulled the Dryads away as well. Just let the Bestigors get chopped down by the Wildwood Rangers, who are doing quite a bit of work here against the Bestigors. But in the meantime, you can see some rear charges going in from the cavalry, helping Durthu, who's dropped about half HP. He did get an Earthblood cast on him, but still, he's friggin' Durthu. He's not going down. And my opponent's army at this point does just shatter and give up. Give up the ghost there. So this has been a build I've been having a lot of success with against the Beastmen. I'm not sure it's great in every situation. Less so than Dryads than I was before. I thought they had a bigger edge against the Gores, but maybe they don't. Their melee defense is rather low, which is a bit of a problem, but they are definitely a lot tankier than they used to be, at 60 armor and 20% physical resist, which Gores cannot exactly claim. I do believe they trade better with unshielded Gores, and you see those fairly often in Vanguard builds, because the unshielded Gores don't have the best of melee defense. These guys have significantly better melee defense, which I didn't realize. As far as my infantry goes, the Wild Rangers, I definitely made some serious mistakes getting him committed against the Gores. I should have tried to commit him to the Bestigor fight somehow, but my opponent was pretty savvy about using his Bestigors, getting him into the proper fights against Dryads where they could win. The Wild Rangers otherwise would have probably done really well against the Bestigors. I need to do some more testing just to see how that works out. Glade Guard, great job chopping up the Minotaurs, providing support against the Centigores. I really find these guys to be very useful in this build. Similarly to Sisters of the Thorn and Wild Riders, they can dumpster Minotaurs. They can tear through Centigores. You obviously have to be very careful. If your opponent comes in with a very cavalry-heavy build, and you'll sometimes see these, where your opponent will bring like 5 Centigores or something like that, 5, 6 Centigores, maybe Warhounds with poison. You need to be careful. At that point, you really need to make use of your supporting units as best you can. Try to get some support in with the Dryads. As you saw there, Durthu can basically manhandle anything the Beastmen put against him. He soloed a Gorbel and tied down a unit of Minotaurs single-handed for a disproportionate amount of time, and it would have probably won against those units. Especially with the Sword of Daith against squishy infantry, he can cause a very easy rout. He's just an absolute beast. The biggest problem with Durthu is just that he's very expensive and obviously susceptible to Centigores with throwing axes and nuisances like that. So nonetheless, great game to my opponent Almagaver here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. In case you didn't notice, the amount of troops deployed was identical. We had the exact same amount of troops deployed, so that was kind of entertaining when I saw that. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions about the game or anything like that, be sure to post those below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will hope to see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.